At 6:42 p.m., my phone buzzed while I was replacing the air filter in the attic. Nothing dramatic, just that tiny ping and a short vibration. The message preview glowed on the screen. Monica, staying at David's. Don't wait up. I stood there with fiberglass on my forearms. One shoe off. The attic fan humming like a dying insect. I didn't move for a full minute. Just stared at that one sentence like it was in a foreign language. No apology. No explanation. No, I'm sorry, or we need to talk. Just schedule coordination like she was telling me to buy milk. I texted back, simple and sterile. Me, thanks for the update. Then I went back to changing the filter. Monica thought I'd freak out. Call. Show up. Beg. Maybe slam a door or two. She forgot who she married. Or maybe she never really knew. I finished the attic. Washed my hands. Took a slow shower. Ate half a sandwich. Fed the dog. Then I pulled out the box from under the guest bed. The one I'd started packing 6 months ago. Not because I knew she'd cheat. Because I knew she'd lie. See, most men don't spot the moment their wife leaves them. I did. It was 3 words, from months back. When she told her sister at brunch, "Paul's just boring." That's when she left. Her body stayed, but her attention was already measuring the escape. I stopped asking where she went when she needed space. I stopped pretending the perfume wasn't new. And I definitely stopped talking whenever David's name came up. Because when the story writes itself, you don't interrupt. By the way, more than 97% of you listening right now aren't subscribed. If you want to keep hearing stories like this, where silence says more than screaming ever could, hit that button. It really helps the team keep going. Now, back to the moment. I folded her shirts, each one neatly, the way she likes them, collar to hem. Her winter coat, camel wool, cost more than my first car, went on top. I even tucked in her favorite lipstick, the one she kept losing, in my glove compartment. Then I sealed the box, taped it 3 times tight, labeled it with a post-it. For Monica, since you forgot something. I didn't cry, didn't curse, didn't even mutter. I loaded it into the car, bypassed every traffic light on instinct, and parked in front of David's building at 12:07 a.m. No note, no knock, just placed it at his door like a polite ghost. His neighbor cracked their blinds. I smiled and tipped an invisible hat. Then I got in the car and drove. Not home. I'd already had the locks changed at noon that day. The lawyer confirmed the refi Monica signed 3 years ago had stripped her name from the deed. She was so proud of getting the lower interest rate, she didn't read the fine print I'd added. I did everything clean, cold, quiet. By 12:33 a.m., her keys no longer worked. By 12:34, her phone number was blocked. By 12:37, the joint checking account was closed. No warning, no overdraft drama. I'd moved my half to a separate bank the week before. Some people scream when they burn. I freeze. 3:04 a.m., she called me. The same number that just hours earlier had told me not to wait up. I watched it ring. Once, twice, then disappear. She called again. Blocked. Again. Blocked. I sipped coffee, watched the city lights, and let her vanish. The quietest ending always echoes the loudest. At exactly 12:07 a.m., the hallway outside David's apartment was silent, save for the buzz of an old vending machine near the elevator and the soft thud of a cardboard box settling on concrete. Her coat sat folded on top, pristine, like it was being returned to a store. The box itself was wrapped in quiet finality. No tape hanging loose, no scribbled message. Just clinical, like a severance check. I didn't knock. Didn't need to. I stood there long enough to hear a door down the hall creak open. Probably someone wondering if I was delivering a bomb. I nodded once and walked away. Downstairs, I turned off my phone. Permanently. The new number was already active. Different area code. Prepaid. Untraceable. I'd opened the account 2 days before at a random strip mall kiosk between a locksmith and a vape shop. I didn't want the number. I wanted silence. By the time I reached the on-ramp heading north, she still hadn't noticed. Or maybe she had, and thought she could fix it with a pout and a flimsy excuse about red wine and falling asleep on David's couch. What she didn't know, her name no longer appeared on any of our utilities. Her access to Netflix, our Wi-Fi, even the grocery delivery app, gone. Her digital fingerprints had been scrubbed while she played pretend with her office Romeo. The banking app wouldn't open for her. 2-factor authentication was now tied to my new number. The joint account, Split evenly last week, except I had filed her portion under a separate EIN, routed into a business account she never knew existed. I didn't steal. I preempted. 3:04 a.m. She finally knocked. Not on David's door. On mine. The Ring camera, now unlinked from her phone, captured every frame. She fumbled with her keys, confused at first, then panicked. She tried the door handle 5 times. Then again with force. Then again with a foot. That's when the screaming started. Paul, open the door. What the hell is going on? I was 112 miles away, sipping burnt diner coffee and letting her voicemail fill with empty rage. I had muted everything. Not just notifications, the whole version of her that believed I'd beg or chase. She tried calling. Again. And again. Until eventually the tone changed. Her 5th voicemail was quieter. Okay, I don't know what you're doing right now, but you're being ridiculous. This isn't funny. Call me back. 6th message. Paul, stop this. You're scaring me. 7th. Silence. Just breathing. Then a whisper. Why are you doing this? Because you already did. By 4:30 a.m., she was back at David's, banging on his door now, probably dragging the box in, pretending she hadn't brought this on herself. The coat she loved so much was soaked by then, left in the rain. I imagined her drying it off and clinging to it like the memory of control. At 6 a.m., she sent an email. Subject, can we talk? No body text. She never got a reply. She'd spent years setting traps. Emotional landmines, subtle digs, withholding affection under the guise of stress and just tired lately. And when she finally went too far, she expected a war. But I didn't fight. I removed myself. She thought silence meant weakness. She didn't realize it was a verdict. Monica moved in with David 3 days after the voicemail silence. No discussion, no ceremony. Just a suitcase dropped next to his futon and a single garbage bag of designer shoes she didn't have space for. David had cleared a corner of his tiny condo for her, made her an omelet that first morning, and tried to kiss her while she was brushing her teeth. It wasn't romantic. It was loud. He laughed too much, too hard. Joked constantly. Most of it was about Paul. I bet your husband didn't do it like this, he said one night, throwing a pizza box onto the floor. She forced a smile. You mean clean up after himself? No, I mean anything. He always seemed like this socks with sandals type. She laughed, politely, but something hollow bloomed behind her ribs. David drank more than she remembered. A bottle of red on Monday, vodka on Thursday, Jaeger on Saturday because it's a throwback, babe. He left wet towels on the bed. Watched YouTube in bed at 2 a.m. with the volume up. His phone lit up with women's names she didn't recognize. Co-workers, he claimed. Once, he made a comment about how she used to be hotter in college. She blinked at him across the dinner table. Excuse me? He shrugged. I mean, we all change. Don't get defensive. Stress doesn't look good on you. 2 weeks in, the intimacy was perfunctory, then transactional, then rare. Meanwhile, Monica started noticing the shift in her social circle. Subtle, then sharp. Her friend Cassie didn't return texts. Mia canceled brunch twice. At first, Monica chalked it up to bad timing. But then a message came in from Jordan, the one friend who never sugarcoated anything. I saw what you posted. Cruel. She scrolled back through her Instagram. The freedom selfie, the one she captioned, finally living on my terms, was still up. 47 likes. One comment from David with 3 flame emojis. And now it stung. The likes didn't mean support. They meant curiosity. People watching her unravel in real time. At work, the admin team stopped chatting with her in the break room. A junior rep avoided eye contact after a meeting. She heard her name whispered in the hallway, once followed by trash. She told herself Paul would reach out. Eventually, he'd want to talk, like they always did after arguments. He didn't. A week later, she logged into their bank portal to move funds. Denied. Wrong password. She tried again. Reset it. Answered the security question. What was your first dog's name? Maggie. Error. She tried Maggie 123. Still nothing. She called the helpline. Waited 30 minutes. Finally, a voice. I'm sorry, ma'am. This account no longer exists. What? The account under that joint ID has been closed. I'm on that account. No, ma'am. Your name is not currently listed. Click. Her stomach dropped. She called Paul's job, half panicked, half angry. Hi. I'm trying to reach Paul Owens. Pause. Paul no longer works here. What? He resigned a week ago. Didn't leave forwarding information. She hung up and sat frozen on David's couch, surrounded by the hollow laughter of a reality she had no control over. Even the Spotify family plan had kicked her out. Looks like your ex really ghosted your whole life, David said from the kitchen, opening a beer with a fork. She didn't answer. She just stared at the screen, blank. Her hand hovered over the keyboard like it might still connect to the past. But everything had already been deleted. She drove back to the house out of instinct, like a dog chasing a scent trail it doesn't understand. The silence with Paul was stretching too long. No messages, no emails, no answers. Just this blank space where a man used to be. A man who, despite his predictability and quiet routines, had somehow disappeared with the precision of a disappearing ink signature. The street looked the same. Same mailbox leaning a bit left. Same overgrown bush Monica always meant to trim but never did. Her parking spot in the driveway was empty, and so was the space beside it. That alone gave her pause. She walked up to the door like it still belonged to her. Knocked once. Tried her key. Slid in but didn't turn. She jiggled it harder. Then the deadbolt snapped open. A woman answered. Early 30s. Blonde. In leggings and a hoodie. Holding a mug that said, Property Manager Vibes. Yes? The woman asked flatly. Monica stared. This is my house. The woman blinked once. I think you're confused. This is my rental. You must have the wrong address. No, Monica said, forcing a laugh. I lived here for 9 years. My husband and I. Are you Monica? Yes. He said you might come by. Pause. The woman took a slow sip from her mug. I don't want any drama. The lease is signed, keys changed, deposit paid. We're moving in fully this weekend. You what? Monica blinked rapidly. He sold the house? Didn't say sold. Said transferred. But it's not in your name anymore. That much I know. Monica's vision swam. She turned, stumbled back down the porch steps like gravity had shifted. She got in the car, shut the door too hard, and just sat there. Then she called her lawyer. Rena picked up after 2 rings. Monica, did Paul sell the house? Her voice was tight, jagged. There was a pause on the other end. Then, technically he didn't have to. You refinanced 5 years ago, remember? What does that have to do with? You waived your claim. Your name was taken off the deed in exchange for the lower rate and the single-income mortgage filing. You signed off electronically. I didn't know what that meant. You initialed the clause. Twice. I want it back. You can't want what you legally surrendered, Monica. Her hands gripped the wheel so tight her knuckles blanched. He tricked me. No. He read the documents. You didn't. Click. She screamed. Loud, primal, guttural. Pounded the steering wheel until the horn honked and her palm throbbed. Then she slumped forward, forehead on leather, breath shallow. How had he done all this so fast? So quietly? She pulled out her phone. Opened Instagram. Gone. Paul's profile. User not found. Facebook. Deactivated. LinkedIn. Deleted. Every digital trace, every photo, every comment, even their tagged pictures, scrubbed. She typed his email into Gmail. No autofill. No recent threads. It was like she'd been ghosted by a ghost. Her panic shifted into something colder. Sharper. It wasn't just that he had left. It was that he had erased her. Surgically, thoroughly. Like she was never real to him at all. She wasn't watching a man fall apart. She was watching one rebuild without her. She hired the PI on a Tuesday morning after showing up late to work for the 4th time in 8 days. Her manager had pulled her aside gently and asked if everything was okay at home. She didn't answer, just stared at a poster in the break room that said, Accountability starts with you, in Comic Sans. She almost tore it off the wall. The PI's name was Ron. He wore ill-fitting khakis, drove a truck that smelled like burned coffee, and talked like every word cost him a tooth. But he was fast. Your guy filed a mail forwarding request through USPS about 2 weeks ago, he told her on the phone. No forwarding address. Box number only. Small town. Population under 2,000. Real off-grid stuff. What about a car? Monica asked. No title under his name. No lease. Closest I can find is a vehicle that's technically registered to a silent LLC. Owned by, guess who? Not him. Some trust in Delaware. She gripped the phone tighter. But he is there, right? I've got receipts, literally. Gas station purchases. One printout from a UPS store, timestamped. All paid in cash. This guy doesn't want to be found. She thanked Ron, hung up, and then sat in silence, surrounded by unpaid bills and David's socks on the floor. David had stopped calling her babe, started staying out longer, stopped asking how her day went. When she'd ask him about his own, he just shrugged and said, "You've got enough going on." She was sleeping on half a futon that made her back ache. In a borrowed apartment that smelled like body spray and microwave burritos. Her shampoo was gone. David had replaced it with a 3-in-1. By Thursday, she was drinking vodka out of a ceramic mug labeled, "World's okayest employee." She hadn't shown up to work in 3 days. She told herself it was temporary, a phase, that Paul would reach out, that he'd have to, eventually, that people don't just disappear unless they're running from something. But that wasn't it, was it? He wasn't running. He was done. And she couldn't stop watching that box outside David's door replay in her mind. The coat folded like a flag at a funeral. The absence of a note somehow louder than words. She started checking his old Venmo. Gone. Old Reddit account? Deleted. Email? Bounced back. Everything that used to connect them was dead. Not blocked. Obliterated. She became fixated. Every morning, she sat in her car with the seat reclined, watching David's door like a detective in a low-budget thriller. She thought about knocking, screaming, apologizing, then maybe seducing him just to see if she could still break through. Instead, she sat, sipped vodka disguised as iced tea, and waited. On a Sunday, a mutual friend from their old life, Sandra, texted her out of the blue. "Sandra, saw Paul at the co-op near my sister's cabin. Almost didn't recognize him." Monica's fingers trembled. Sandra, second message, he looked different, confident, calm, like he got younger. Said nothing, just smiled. Paid in cash. Left. Monica stared at the screen, then hurled the mug against the drywall. "He's not allowed to be fine," she shouted. David came out of the bedroom half-naked, blinking. "What the hell was that?" "Nothing," she snapped, grabbing a broom. "Just gravity." But she knew it wasn't gravity. It was her world, tilting, too slow to notice until everything started sliding. Because Paul hadn't just left. He had evolved. And now she wasn't just angry. She was obsessed. The name on the mailbox read R. Ellis. The Paul part was gone. Scraped clean, like a label removed from a jar before it's repurposed. The neighbors didn't ask. In a town that small, people understood boundaries came in all shapes. Barbed wire, polite nods, and false names. Russell worked nights. Not because he had to. Because he wanted the quiet. He'd taken a janitor job at a truck dispatch center just off the highway. $17.25 an hour. Under the table. Paid weekly in a white envelope with his alias printed crooked on the corner. No one bothered the night guy. He mopped floors, restocked vending machines, and filed inventory reports in silence while drivers smoked and swore at traffic maps. During the day, he studied. Bookkeeping courses online, mostly free. He kept a notebook. Wore through 4 of them in 5 months. Columns, flowcharts, little hand-drawn icons of dollar signs and calculators. Budgeting gave him a sense of control. Forecasting soothed him. He didn't need to chase the future anymore. He could shape it cell by cell. Most afternoons, he volunteered at the local veteran center, folding flyers, setting up chairs, driving older vets to appointments. They liked him because he didn't talk much. One of them, a retired colonel named Gus, once leaned over during a game of dominoes and said, "You look like a guy who's seen a fire and didn't bother screaming." Russell just smiled. They taught him about investing. Not the stock market on Reddit kind. Real investing. Physical assets. Quiet returns. Auction houses. Foreclosure notices. 6 months after disappearing, he bought his first storage facility. Low traffic. Low maintenance. But every door had a number, and every number meant rent. 7 months later, he bought another. Bigger. Outskirts of town. Needed work. He paid cash. Clean, sealed, untouchable. His only rule, no cameras. He didn't want to watch the world anymore. He just wanted to rebuild without the noise. He kept no photos, no memorabilia. Everything from his past life, his wedding band, the anniversary cards, the mug Monica gave him that said "World's Best Listener," gone. He lived in a 1-bedroom duplex behind a church. He fixed his own sink, grew tomatoes in a container garden, and kept receipts for everything. No one visited. No one needed to. One night, after helping Gus replace a headlight, a woman from the town council asked if he had a family. Not anymore, he said simply. She waited for a joke or a follow-up. There wasn't one. Sometimes, late at night, he'd walk the perimeter of the storage facility with a flashlight. Not because he was worried, but because he liked knowing everything was in its place. He liked that nothing moved unless he moved it. No surprises. No lies. His peace didn't come from revenge. It came from invisibility. In the absence of her chaos, he found the shape of his own identity, clear, clean, deliberate. Russell Ellis didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't check his phone 20 times a day hoping someone loved him enough to treat him like crap. Russell Ellis was alone. But alone didn't mean broken. It meant free. The text from David came on a Tuesday afternoon. For words. No punctuation. You scare me. Goodbye. No explanation. No call. Not even a fight. When Monica got home, the drawers were empty. His clothes gone. His laptop gone. Even the whiskey bottle he kept in the freezer was missing. The sheets were still warm, like he'd only just slipped out of the life they were pretending to build together. First, she thought it was a bluff, that he'd be back, maybe high or dramatic. But after 2 days of silence, reality landed like a punch to the ribs. He wasn't playing a game. He was gone. She sat in the kitchen and stared at the magnetized grocery list on the fridge. Milk, eggs, laundry soap. Get Paul to call? She ripped it down and threw it into the sink. By Friday, the office cut her hours. Budget, they said. But she saw the looks, heard the whispers. She wasn't just the woman whose husband vanished. She was the woman who flaunted it. Uploaded selfies while her marriage imploded. Got tagged in memes about leveling up with a coworker. One HR manager she reached out to for a new role politely declined to forward her resume. When she pushed, the reply came cold. Due to ethical concerns raised by internal references, we cannot proceed. Ethical. That word landed harder than she expected. So she filed a missing person report. Name? The cop asked, tapping slowly at the keyboard. Paul Owens, she said, then corrected herself. Well, he's going by Russell Ellis now. The officer raised an eyebrow. He changed his name legally? No, not legally. Just, he's using it. The officer kept typing. When's the last time you saw him? Monica hesitated. Months ago, but he's disappeared. No phone, no contact, nothing. The officer blinked. You two divorced? No, he just vanished. He leaned back in the chair and exhaled. Slow. Ma'am, that's not a missing person. That's a man who doesn't want to talk to you. She stared at him. Look, he said more gently. He's an adult. No crimes. No mental health flags. No danger to himself or others. He's not missing. He's just done. The words clanged inside her skull like a slammed door. He's not missing. He's just done. She nodded, walked out of the station, and collapsed into the driver's seat of her car. Her breath hitched, loud and wet. She grabbed the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring her. And still, the sobs came hard, uncontrolled. She screamed once, just once, and it bounced off the windshield like a ricochet. Later that night, she lay on her mattress, still on the floor, no frame, no sheets, and scrolled through old photos she'd saved from her iCloud backup. Paul in the backyard, grill spatula in hand. Paul in his blue shirt at her cousin's wedding. Paul laughing at the beach. Paul holding the puppy she made him adopt. Paul asleep on the couch after work, still in his boots. Each photo felt like evidence, like a memory of a crime scene she didn't realize was a crime until long after the body was gone. She zoomed in on his face. Where did he go? How could someone just leave their skin behind like that? Outside, it rained. Inside, she was finally alone in the way she used to threaten when she didn't get her way. The silence didn't feel victorious. It felt permanent. She wasn't supposed to be there. Monica had only attended the trade expo because she needed a job, any job, and figured if she showed up with a lanyard and a half-fake resume, maybe someone would give her 15 seconds of attention. The conference badge said, Operations Consultant, though the only operation she'd managed lately was pouring boxed wine into a reusable coffee tumbler and pretending it was cold brew. By the time she found her way into the logistics tech wing, she was buzzed and irritable. Her feet hurt. Her hair looked like it had been styled in a wind tunnel. She hadn't slept in 2 nights. And when the crowd started filing into panel room B, she followed purely because her phone was dead and the chairs looked soft. She didn't even glance at the speaker's name on the schedule. But when the man stepped on stage, everything inside her dropped. There he was, Paul. Except not Paul. Not exactly. He stood straighter, spoke clearer. His shoulders were broader, his beard trimmed close, his eyes alert. He wore a dark navy button-down and spoke without hesitation, walking the stage like he belonged on it. The slide deck behind him read, Russell Ellis, building smarter storage in a post-analog world. She blinked. Her buzz evaporated like water on a hot pan. He was talking about automation triggers, RFID tagging, real-time asset recovery systems, things he used to mumble about to her over dinner while she scrolled Instagram and said, "You should totally start a blog or something." And now people were nodding, clapping, taking notes. He glanced at the crowd briefly and saw her. Their eyes locked for maybe half a second. No twitch, no pause in his sentence, no hiccup in his rhythm. He simply moved on, like she was just another face in the sea. When the talk ended, she stood up so fast her chair toppled over. She pushed past two interns and an older woman in a blazer, chasing him through the side corridor as he disappeared behind a black curtain. Russell, Paul, wait. Two men in black polos blocked her path instantly. One had a walkie clipped to his belt. The other crossed his arms and gave her the dead-eyed stare of someone trained to handle drunks at events with corporate sponsors. "I need to speak to him," she said, breathless. The taller guard's expression didn't shift. "Mr. Ellis doesn't take personal meetings." Her voice cracked. "I'm his wife." A beat of silence. Then the shorter guard, without missing a beat. "Not anymore." The words gutted her. He hadn't even said them himself. Someone else had delivered the line, like it had been rehearsed. Tell him I'm here. He saw me. He looked at me." The guards didn't respond. One adjusted his earpiece. The other turned slightly sideways, blocking her view of the backstage entirely. "I'm not crazy," she muttered. But the hallway was already emptying. Attendees flowed past her like water around a stone. She stood alone, disheveled, the smell of stale wine clinging to her blouse, her badge slightly tilted, her eyeliner smudged. People walked past her without stopping. Once, Paul had waited outside her work with flowers when she had a bad day. Once, he'd driven 4 hours just to bring her a charger she forgot. Now he wouldn't even send a glance. She turned slowly, knees weak, face burning. Her reflection in a nearby poster stand made her flinch. She looked desperate, forgotten, irrelevant. She didn't remember how she got back to the hotel, but she remembered the feeling. Not heartbreak, humiliation. She had walked into a building hoping to find a lifeline. Instead, she found a man reborn. And not a single part of him had room left for her. She left at dawn, running on bad coffee and worse hope, gripping the printed address like it was some kind of map to salvation. 6 hours on the road with no music, just the hum of tires and the occasional whisper of a memory she didn't ask for. The PI had finally found something, a possible residence tied to a P.O. box, linked through an obscure paper trail of delivery receipts and one partial utility hookup under the name R. Ellis. It wasn't a confirmation, but it was close enough. The town didn't even show up right on Google Maps, just a cluster of streets off a county highway, a gas station that sold fishing lures and cat litter, and a diner called Midge's. She didn't stop, just followed the curve of the road until it narrowed into cracked pavement, past fields, past mailboxes with numbers painted on in flaking white. Then she saw it. The duplex. One story. Pale blue siding. A porch swing that moved slightly in the breeze, though there was no one in sight. The yard was unervingly neat. Not just trimmed, manicured. Fresh mulch lined the flower beds. The kind of place where someone wakes up early not because they have to, but because they want to. Monica parked half on the gravel shoulder and stepped out like a trespasser. Her legs ached. Her mouth was dry. She adjusted her jacket, which no longer quite fit, and walked slowly up the path. Each step felt heavier than the last. She knocked. 3 soft taps. Then one louder. A moment passed. Then another. Finally, the door opened. A woman stood there. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Silver hair in a clean bun. Sweater over a collared shirt. She looked like she belonged in a Vermont bed and breakfast brochure. "Oh," the woman said gently. "You must be Monica?" Monica froze. "Yes." The woman nodded, not unkindly. He said you might show up one day. Is he here? She asked too quickly. Paul Russell. I mean, the woman held up a hand, not to silence, but to calm. No, she said simply. He's not. Monica blinked. Do you know when he'll be back? The woman's expression didn't change, but her eyes did. They softened, almost with pity. Probably never. He doesn't live here. He just left something. She gestured toward the porch. At first Monica hadn't seen it. Just a plain white envelope taped to the inside of the screen door. The woman reached for it, peeled it free with 2 fingers, and handed it to her. Take care of yourself, she said, and shut the door with a quiet click. Monica stood there, suddenly cold. She opened the envelope slowly, like it might bite. Inside, 1 slip of paper. No signature, no date, just 6 words in the center. I wish you peace. You'll find none here. No flourish, no anger, no second page. Just that. She read it again, and again. Her hands shook. Her knees gave and she sat on the step without meaning to. The porch wood was warm from the sun. Birds chirped somewhere behind her. A dog barked 2 blocks away. Everything was too quiet. She whispered to no one, "Please, just let me talk to him." But the house didn't answer. She sat there for nearly an hour, waiting for the door to open again, for a figure to appear at the end of the street, for anything to happen. Nothing did. She left the letter folded on her lap and stared out at the street with eyes that no longer blinked. Because for the first time in months she understood. He didn't just leave her. He removed her, and there was no door left to knock on. It was 2:54 a.m. when she opened the bottle. No glass, just the bottle lukewarm, half finished from the night before, its screw top barely hanging on. She sat on the edge of the porch like it was the edge of a cliff, legs pulled up, her back pressed against the chipped railing that once felt like home. Her phone sat face down beside her. Screen cracked, battery hovering somewhere near death. She picked it up, unlocked it with a trembling thumb, and pulled up the contact still saved as Paul Redhart. No one had called him that in months. She stared at the number. Her breath hitched. Her thumb hovered. Call. Straight to voicemail. No ring. No delay. Just the mechanical voice of disinterest. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. She tried again. Voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. She closed her eyes, pressing the phone to her forehead like it might somehow restore the past. Then she remembered he changed the number. Long ago. Before the house was sold. Before the PI. Before the job cuts. Before David left and her friends turned into ghosts. She just refused to believe it was permanent. Now the silence confirmed it. She scrolled through their old messages. The thread was still there, buried under months of unanswered follow-ups. Can we talk? I'm sorry. Please. This isn't you. I miss us. None of them ever got a response. And at the very top of it all, the message that changed everything. Monica. Staying at David's. Don't wait up. Paul. Thanks for the update. She read it 10 times. 20. The tone hadn't changed. It hadn't aged. It was just final. She clutched the phone to her chest and let the tears come. Not dramatic ones, not howling. Just quiet, steady, undignified streams that pooled into her collar and soaked her sleeves. Because this wasn't heartbreak. This was absence. Real, impenetrable absence. There was no argument left to have. No door to kick in. No apology that could be spoken to a man who no longer existed in the world she inhabited. She slumped sideways, curled into herself like a dying thing, and passed out under the thin blanket of night. By morning, the sun was already cutting through the haze. A neighbor, Mrs. Cardillo from 3 units down, found her curled on the porch, makeup smeared, phone still gripped in one white-knuckled hand like a lifeline that had snapped mid-rescue. She didn't wake her, just pulled a shawl over her shoulders and left quietly, as if not to disturb a morning that had no name. Miles away, Russell Ellis was awake. He sipped hot coffee on the steps of a small shed behind one of his storage units. A notebook open beside him, a single blue pen tapping slowly on the page. No thoughts of Monica. No need to check a phone that no longer carried echoes of her voice. The silence was not heavy. It was chosen. The past, to him, was not something to relive. It was something to be erased, clean, deliberate, and final. And he didn't look back.